this is JamesimusPrime2798 here. I thought I would just drop in and say welcome to another Q&A video. This is Q&A video number 13. Yeah, and also guys, Happy New Year. It's December 31st and it's currently 9 o'clock at night. Only 3 hours to go. So to get things started, let's start off with the questions you guys requested for me. So here we go. Question number 1. What is your favourite episode in Bunked? I got a lot of favourite episodes in Bunked, but I do not have one in favouritism, guys. I'm going to note down a few. There's Welcome to Camp Kikiwaka, Gone Girl, The Ones That Got Away, Can You Hear Me Now, Waka Waka Waka, Secret Santa, There's No Place Like Camp, Luke's Back, Love Is for the Birds, Xander Says Goodbye, Griff's in the House, Zuri Had a Little Lamb, Luke Out Below, Tidal Wave, Fogged In, How the Griff Stole Christmas, Mother May I, Dog Days of Summer, Cabin vs. Cabin, and The Great Escape. They're my favourite episodes of Bunked, and they're also seasons 1 and 2 episodes. And I do have some season 3 episodes, but I forgot what they were, but I'm not including 4 and 5 because I don't like seasons 4 and 5 all that much. Alright, question number 2. Who is my favourite female character in Cars? It's Sally. I like Sally. She's the main female character in Cars. She's a blue Porsche. She's in charge of the Cozy Cone Motel, and she's also a lawyer in town, and she's also friends with everybody in Radiator Springs, and she's also the girlfriend of Lightning McQueen. When she was first introduced, Lightning's eyes were popping in, and he went, "Holy Portia, she's got to be from my attorney's office." Yeah, and he thought Sally was beautiful, and then somehow Sally began to regain some respect for Lightning for fixing the road and also teaching him about what Radiator Springs used to be like and so on. She does appear in a lot in the first movie. She only appears in the start of the second movie and towards the end of the second movie, and the same with Cars 3, and only appears in one episode of Cars on the Road. That would be Dino Park. So I have used Sally a few times in my parodies. I've used her as herself, Murray's girlfriend, in my V1 and V2 Wiggles movie and Wiggly Safari parody, herself, Wilbur's mother, in my Charlotte's Web parody, herself in my Land Before Time parody, Perdita in my 101 Dalmatians parody, Maid Marian in my Robin Hood parody, Sally's Yellow Beetle and Giselle in my Herbie Fully Loaded and Herbie Goes to Monte Carlo parodies, and Feather Duster in my Beauty and the Beast parody. And yet to come, she will be playing as one of Shrek, Donkey, Fiona and Puss's friends in my Gordon Shrek parody, Rosie the Pink Engine in my Thomas and Friends parody, herself Bagheera's girlfriend in my V3 of the Jungle Book 2, herself Casper's mother in my Herbie Casper parody, and Emily the Emerald Engine in my V2 of Thomas and Friends, Here Are the Rails and Day of the Diesels. Alright, question number 3. Opinions on the royal treatment. Well, it's a good movie, though. It's about a New York hairdresser named Isabella, well, Izzy for short. She is willing to work at a wedding for a charming prince named Prince Thomas. And somehow they both fall in love and began developing a relationship. And I have seen the movie on Netflix. And it's a good movie, but the Rotten Tomatoes percentage is 33%. Well, I can agree on some things, but not everything. But it's still a good movie. But the movie has something in it which I do like. It stars Laura Monaro, aka Allie Dawson from Austin and Ally. But however, I will do a cast video on it one day. Please comment and I'll see what I can do for a cast video. Question number 4. When is Ash and Dawn, Austin and Ally coming? Maybe next year, but I'm only going to do the series in clips, guys, because, to be honest, as you all know, the TV show parodies I'm currently doing in clips are Bunked, JamesimusPrime2798, The Dukes of Hazzard, JamesimusPrime2798, Wiggle Wiggle Wiggle, JamesimusPrime2798. But I'm not going to do the series in full episodes like I'm doing with Lightning McQueen and Friends, Thomas and Friends. But I guarantee I will do clips of the show next year. I promise. Alright, question number 5. Is Percy the small engine one of your favourite Thomas and Friends characters? Well, yes, Percy is one of my favourite characters, but he's not my number one favourite, just like how Henry is my number one favourite. Because, to be honest, my favourite characters are Henry, Gordon, Oliver, Stepney, Donald and Douglas, Skarloey, Sir Handel, and then Percy. Percy's number 9. Percy is kind, he is small, he wears green. Well, he's painted green, and he has a number 6 on his bunker. He is Thomas's best friend. He's good at pulling the mail train. Before he was introduced in the series, Gordon, James, and Henry had to fetch their own coaches after having hard times while Thomas was away to run his branch line, and then they got really fed up with shunting their coaches and trucks, and they had no time to have a rest. And Gordon had to pull his coaches backwards after the wind pushed him backwards and forwards on the turntable, and then James span around like a top on the turntable, and Henry got drenched by an elephant. Well, that's in the Railway series, but not the TV show. So all 3 engines decided to go on strike, and they planned to get revenge on the Fat Controller for making them look silly, even though it wasn't really his fault because he offered Thomas the job on his branch line. And then soon the 3 engines went on strike, and Edward had to do the shunting for them, and they all treated Edward badly, and then the Fat Controller understood his feelings and told him that tender engines do shunt, and realised the railway could use a new tank engine. And then when he brought Percy to the railway, he helped Edward and Thomas out with odd jobs in the main line. After Gordon, James, and Henry were punished, and they were shut up in the sheds until further notice. But the 3 were let out again afterwards. Percy did stay with Gordon, James, and Henry throughout season 2, when Edward was working at Wellsworth Station and Thomas was running his branch line. So Percy was kind of like the little brother to those 3. Yeah. And I have used Percy a few times in my parodies. I've used him as Nibs in my Bowduke Peter Pan parody, one of the underwater big band sea animals in my Wiggles movie parody, Bullseye in my Toy Story parodies, himself Shrek's friend in my Henry Shrek series, Cardigan in my Charlotte's Web 2 parody, himself Rudolph's best friend / Zoe's brother in my Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeer parody, himself Anthony's best friend in my V2 of the Wiggles movie and the Wiggles Wiggly Safari, Bobby Swift in my Cars 3 parody, Mike Wazowski in my Monsters Inc. parody, Milhouse Van Houten in my Simpsons movie parody, Robbie Ross in my Bunked parody, Louie in my DuckTales parody, and himself Mowgli and Baloo and Bagheera's friend in my Jungle Book V3 parody. And yet to come, Percy will also be playing as Tails in my Sonic the Hedgehog parody, Donkey in my Gordon Shrek parody, Squeaks in my Transformers The Last Night parody, and young Tommy Santarelli in my Sandlot Heading Home parody. Right, question number 6. If I ever done a Drake and Josh parodies, who would I use them as? Well, to be honest on that question there, guys, I'd maybe use Austin Moon, Xander McCormick, Bo Duke, Shaggy Rogers, or Philip J. Fry as Drake, Joey Rooney, Bart Simpson, Chris Griffin, Dez, or Mikey Blumberg as Josh. They're just ideas, though, for Drake and Josh. But I will do a parody on it. I guarantee I will. Maybe. Alright, number 7. What are your favourite steam trains in the UK? There's the Flying Scotsman and Mallard. They're both famous steam trains in the UK. They're really fast, they're famous, they're owned by the National Railroad Museum at York. Flying Scotsman is currently running the rails, and Mallard is on display at the museum. And Mallard is an LNER A4 class Pacific, and the Flying Scotsman is an LNER A3 class Pacific, and it's really famous. It's been to America in 1969 to 1973, but nearly got stranded in America after his owner, Alan Pegler, went bankrupt. And then businessman Sir William McAlpine purchased the Flying Scotsman, and then took the Flying Scotsman to Australia in 1988 to 1989. And of course, even though Scotsman is an A3, Gordon the Big Engine from Thomas and Friends is an LNER A3. If he was real, he and Flying Scotsman would be the only last surviving LNER A3s, because they're brothers. From what I've read in the Railway series Tenders for Henry, Gordon was upset from his brothers being scrapped, but he realised Scott was the only one that was left. All right, number 8. What is your favourite Thomas season? Well, I don't have a favourite Thomas season, but I'm just going to note down my favourite seasons. There's seasons 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and 7. That's it. I do like the other seasons, but the first 7 seasons went for 5 minutes, whereas the others only went 8 minutes to extend the production. Yeah. All right, question number 9. What is your favourite steam train from Australia? It's 3801. 3801 is the most famous steam locomotive in Australia. It's just as famous as the Flying Scotsman. It's been to Adelaide, Perth, Brisbane, Melbourne, Alice Springs, and random parts of New South Wales. It's owned by the New South Wales Rail Transport Museum at Thelmere. 3801 used to be owned by a company called 3801 Limited after its restoration in 1986. It ran tour trains for the company for 20 years, but the lease for the locomotive was up, and the locomotive was sent to Thelmere. And it went under in 2006, but it went under restoration from 2008 to 2020. It needed boiler repairs and other basic repairs, and of course it was rebuilt. Sorry about that, guys. I just got a text message. Ignore it. Yeah, so 3801 also did trips with the Flying Scotsman in 1988 to 1989. 3801 was built in 1943 at Clyde Engineering in Sydney during World War II. Only 30 of those locomotives were built. First 5 were streamlined, the rest of them were non-streamlined. They were designed for express services, passenger services, and sometimes freight. But all the 38s were scrapped except 3801, 3813, 3820, and 3830. They only kept 4 of them because they were really famous. And of course, 3801 and 3820 are owned by the Rail Transport Museum. 3830 is owned by Powerhouse Museum. 3813 was owned by the Rail Museum as well, but the locomotive is cut up into parts at the Railway Museum in near Coffs Harbour on the west part of it. But I'm glad the locomotive is preserved, so they only kept 4. Alright, number 10. Who are your top 5 favourite parody YouTubers? Well, there's John Clancy, my mate on YouTube, Aiden the Movie Guy, James the Parody Maker 7446, and John's brother Mike Clancy, and Alfin the YouTuber. They're my 5 favourite parody users on YouTube, and they're very good mates of mine too. Yeah, because we all do parodies. Alright, number 11. I know I've answered this before, but this is the second time I will answer this question. What parodies are you going to do next year in 2024? Well, on the list I got Luke and Bo, Starsky and Hutch, Pokemon the First Movie, JamesmusPrime2798, Stan in the Magic Park, Thomas in the Magic Railroad, Gordon Shrek, Thomas the Tank Engine, Sonic the Hedgehog, Transformers Age of Extinction, Transformers Age of Extinction, Roadhouse, JamesmusPrime2798, The Love McQueen, The Love Bug, Sleepover, JamesmusPrime2798, Lightning McQueen and Friends, Thomas and Friends, Here Are the Rails, and Daisy, Aloha Holidays, Jessie Aloha Holidays. Yeah, that's going to be my Christmas parody for next year, and it's also going to be for its 10th anniversary as well. And I'm also going to make that parody a tribute to Cameron Boyce, aka Luke Ross, who passed away in 2019, about 4 years ago. If he was still alive today, he would have been 24. Yeah, but it's really sad. He passed away. Alright, number 12. I know I've answered this before. This is the 3rd time I'll answer this question. Who is your favourite Dukes of Hazzard character? It's Bo Duke. Bo is one of the main characters in the Dukes of Hazzard. He is the 2nd protagonist in the show. He's the youngest in the Duke family. Sorry. He has blonde hair. He's 6'4" tall. He is easy with the ladies, and he drives the General Lee quite a lot. I don't need to go over what he's been through, so and so on. I've already done it already. But I have used Bo a lot in my parodies. I've used him as Slinky Dog in my Toy Story parodies, Peter Pan, himself as an extra text Dinoco in my Cars parodies, Ray Payton Jr. in my Herbie Fully Loaded parody, Glenn Quagmire, Larry Lobster, in my SpongeBob movie parody, Henry the Green Engine, himself John's cousin in my Ted parodies, himself Randy's cousin / Stan's second cousin in my South Park movie parody, Junior in my V2 of Thomas and the Magic Railroad, Lemire as a human in Beauty and the Beast, Little John in my Robin Hood parody, Greg Wiggle in my V2 of the Wiggles movie and Wiggly Safari, Barney Rubble in my Flintstones movie parodies, Coach Francis, this is his cousin / Jack's second cousin in my SWAT parody, and himself in my Jungle Book V3 parody. And yet to come, he will be playing as Ken Hutchinson in my upcoming Starsky and Hutch parody, Brock in my Pokemon parodies, Birdie the Bus, himself Dalton's cousin, Ren Corky, Jesse's cousin, basically himself, Fireman Sam, himself my Little Mermaid parodies, himself Postman Pat's cousin, the Bandit in my Smokey and the Bandit parodies, himself Human Henry in my Gordon 2 Shrek 2 parody, and Rusty Griswold as an adult in my Vacation parody. Yeah. Alright, yeah. I like Bowen. He is my favourite character, and I like Luke as well. Luke is my second favourite character. He is the main protagonist of the Dukes of Hazzard. He's the eldest out of Bo, Daisy, Coy, and Vance. He has dark hair, he wears blue, and he wears random plaid shirts and check shirts and flannelette shirts. But in Season 2 he wore a blue plain shirt, but he does wear a denim jacket over his check shirts in the first 2 seasons. Luke is also smart, honest, wise, a quick thinker. He also rides in the General Lee, but he does drive the car occasionally, because whether he or Bo takes it out for a spin, even though Bo is a racing driver and Luke is the crew chief, it's like NASCAR. And Luke used to be in the Marine Corps as a soldier and then a sergeant. I don't need to go over the other things, because I've done that already. But I have used Luke a lot in my parodies as well. I've used him as Slinky in my Toy Story parodies, himself Peter Pan's cousin, Tex Dinoco in my Cars parodies, himself Maggie and Ray Jr.'s cousin in my Herbie Fully Loaded parody, Gordon the Big Engine, John Bennett, Randy Marsh, Mr. Conductor in my V2 of Thomas and the Magic Railroad, Human Cogsworth in my Beauty and the Beast parody, himself Little John's cousin, my Robin Hood parody, himself Greg's cousin in my V2 of the Wiggles movie and the Wiggles Wiggly Safari parodies, himself Barney's cousin in my Flintstones parodies, Coach Francis Malloy in my SWAT parodies, and himself in my Jungle Book parodies. And yet to come, he'll be playing as David Starsky in my Starsky and Hutch parody, Brock's cousin in my Pokemon parodies, James Dalton in my Roadhouse parodies, himself Ren and Julie's cousin in my Sleepover parodies, himself Jesse's cousin in my Jesse Aloha Holidays parodies, Fireman Sam's cousin, King what's his name in my Little Mermaid parodies, Postman Pat, himself Bandit's cousin, himself Rusty and Audrey's cousin in my Vacation parodies as an adult, and Shrek as a human in Gordon 2 Shrek 2. And I might use him as Jim Douglas in my V2 of Herbie. Well, we'll just see about that. So yeah, guys, that's all the questions I have answered for you for this year. And if there's any that you missed out on, don't worry, I'll answer them in another Q&A video. But however, guys, I will be doing more videos as soon as I possibly can. So guys, this year for 2023 has been a great year so far. So now I'd like you to subscribe to my channel, watch my YouTube parodies, watch all the vlogs I have done from 2019 to onwards. And also, look forward to my upcoming YouTube parody, Luke and Bo, Starsky and Hutch. So you guys, thank you. I want to thank you for tuning in. This has been JamesimusPrime2798 here. I am gone. And Happy New Year!